Welcome to the worst financial mistakes in the Bible and how you can avoid them. In this session, we're going to cover chapter 16, Losing Your Soul. Now, I chose for my text Matthew 28, and this is the story when the Pharisees tried to bribe the Roman soldiers to tell a lie about the resurrection of Christ. They did not want people to believe that Jesus had rose from the dead. So they went to the Roman soldiers and they gave them a bribe and asked them to tell a lie. Do you realize to this very day that lie has been carried down through the annals of history, saying that Jesus didn't come out of the grave? There are still people to this day, in spite of all the evidence, in spite of all the books, in spite of all the archaeology and all of the testimonies about His resurrection, that believe the lie told by the Roman soldiers because of a bribe. You see, it's possible to gain the whole world and yet lose our soul. The Roman soldiers lost their soul in exchange for a little money. Now, this problem impacts many areas of society, and it has terrible ramifications. I like to say that there are lies and there are damn lies. One of the lies that I think is a damnable lie is one that I'm personally familiar with. A friend of mine was living in Sichuan, China, when a great earthquake hit in the year 2008. That earthquake killed over 60,000 people. As it turned out, some of the worst casualties were in the public schools where the little children had the buildings collapse upon them. My friend who rushed into the streets said it was a day that looked like hell on earth, like Dante's Inferno. Little children, were trapped under the rubble, and they could hear their screams and their pleas to get out, but they could not get to them. They were under too much debris. They tried as hard as they could, but they were lost. And over 5,000 of the deaths that day were of the school children. People were mourning and wailing and grieving in the streets. And there was an investigation about why those school buildings collapsed. And it turned out that the building contractors had failed to build them to standard. For a little bit more profit, they had taken the steel out of the building so that they were no longer earthquake-proof. Yes, they had put more money in their pocket, but they had to suffer the consequences of those little children now dying because of their desire for profit. So what are the consequences of losing our own soul when we compromise our integrity for personal financial gain? Well, there are many. Not only do we lose our relationship with the Lord, where we have an intimate trust relationship and we become corrupted in our own heart and mind, but we also impact so many others. I like to say that financial corruption is the cancer of any economy. It starts to destroy profits. It starts to turn culture upside down, and everything progresses backwards, not forward. I'll give you an example. In one country where I frequently minister and travel, lying is a very common practice in the culture. And bribery is as well. Bribery is practiced often. So in the public schools, the teachers are motivated to give the students a bad grade. Why? Because if they have a bad grade, their parents will come and bribe them to give them a good grade. So it's turned the whole process upside down. The teachers aren't motivated to teach the students to get a good grade. So you see how destructive it is when we compromise with financial decisions, when we get into bribery, extortion, and corruption. This is an evil practice, and it's one that's so subtle because we often see corruption in somebody else, but fail to see it in ourselves. There was a recent survey done in a country where there's a lot of corruption. And in this survey it asked, what's the number one problem in your nation? And they said corruption among all government and business officials was number one. And then further in the survey it asked, if you had to tell a lie in order to achieve some of your personal goals and achieve having your personal needs met, would you be willing to do it? And the answer overwhelmingly was absolutely yes. You see, they saw the corruption over there, but not themselves. I believe this is what Jesus meant when He said, get the log out of your own eye before we try to get the speck out of our neighbor's eye. So how do we avoid the trap of losing our own soul by compromising our integrity? Well, let me read you some of these great promises from the Scripture. Psalm 34:12 says, "Whoever of you loves life and desires to see many good days, keep your tongue from evil." That means don't lie, don't deceive. Keep your lips from telling lies. Turn from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. In other words, be a peacemaker. Don't be a compromiser. Don't be one that is corrupt in your own heart and then expect your nation or your country or your company or your school to change, because the corruption is within your own heart. It must start with the change in our own heart. Proverbs 15:27, "The greedy bring ruin to their households, but the one who hates bribes will live." And Deuteronomy 16:9, "Do not pervert justice or show partiality. Do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the innocent." God is calling us to financial integrity, to let our yes be yes and our no be no. If we compromise for $1, for $100, for 1,000 pounds, for 1,000,000 shekels, if we compromise for money and for personal gain, we'll lose our soul and it will have devastating consequences. So how do we avoid the trap of losing our soul? Never compromise your integrity. Speak the truth. Guard your tongue. Do the right thing, even if it personally costs you.